When people say there isn't a cartoon that does this, or there have not been enough of these cartoons, more likely than not, they couldn't be farther from the truth. There is, quite literally, a cartoon for everything, whether it's from 2019 or 1919. As harebrained as it seems, there's a reason why people call the new decade's worth of animated media derivative. Considering how far back the history of the medium spans, there's pretty much no topic left uncovered. That's not a diss either, that's quite the accomplishment. There's so many cartoons worth looking at that get overlooked. Surprisingly, even if there is one worth a deep dive, oftentimes there might not be enough meat there to sustain a true review of it. So, I wanted to start a series for cartoons like that, stuff worth talking about, but what might not sustain a modest discussion on its own. Each volume will contain 3 to 5 topics of discussion to review, and today we're covering the Canadian animated imports Nicktoons Network aired in the mid to late 2000s.
Don't talk back.
Yakety yak, yakety yak. Yakety yak, yakety yak.
Yakkity Yak. Yakety Yak is basically a modern Hanna-Barbera cartoon outsourced to Canada. With a character and tone inspired by a 50s doo-wop single, the series proper follows an amateur comedian and his escapades into the far-off town of Onion Falls as he lives his crazy life. I love this show for, its general aesthetic. It's not surprising characters embark on out-there misadventures, but since Yakety Yak has surrealist leanings, the series at large tends to be more out there than ever, which is reflected in the art style. Utilizing thick outlines and a sketchy but articulated art style, it fleshes out the series well visually. It's fun to look at the art, even if it's funneled into the Flash pipeline. Speaking of which, the animation is definitely decent. Yakety Yak was obviously streamlined for Flash, but they still find places to put in a few wild takes or new expressive animation cycles. I really like what influence the voice-over work can have on the physical animation. The cast is really entertaining, but a couple of them grate on you after a while, including Yakety. But I think that is a fair price to pay for some of these deliveries. I mean, come on. The humor's pretty decent. The way that it's written makes it feel like Yakety Yak was slightly autobiographical and twisted upside down. The experiences the characters go on are weird and bizarre, but not stretched out to be as weird as possible just because. It dabbles in meta and referential baits, but it's mostly organically dialogue-driven. Not all the characters can steal the show, but the ones that do are funny most of the time. Overall, while not groundbreaking or revolutionary in style or approach, Yakety Yak serves as a fun romp in keeping with Nicktoons Network's acquired lineup, such as My Dad is a Rock Star. So the show is literally the product of Gene Simmons' imagination. It's not autobiographical, but its perspective and general premise was inspired by his son. As the title may allude to, the show follows the aforementioned rock star's young son, Willie, and his family as they settle down in an affluent but pretty boring neighborhood. See, the kid wants a normal life away from touring and showboating, but his dad being a famous rock star always brings more heat than he was asking for. The show, functionally speaking, is an animated sitcom. Every phase of production was reviewed by Simmons' team. Interestingly enough, Nelvana had enough street cred with him that he asked them up front to make the cartoon. The designs are okay. They work well with the fluid style of animation, but are overall not stand out. As for the setup, the series is your average show about a kid in school leading a weird double life, dealing with challenges and all that. Many would say that the focus is perhaps misplaced, but I think it's an interesting perspective to tackle. Thing is, it wasn't executed in any new or captivating way, so the whole thing is kind of unremarkable in general. The characters also usually follow this track. Willie is interesting because of the things he has, not who he is, and because of that, his likability only stretches so far. Personally, I found that his rivals, intentional or otherwise, stole the show. They subverted expectations with Buzz, the school bully. by having him present everything in a measured, dramatic way, while also pounding kids into lockers. Obviously, Willie's dad is also a spotlight stealer, but as a matter of circumstance, my personal favorite would have to be Skunk, the family's ex-roadie that lives in their decommissioned tour bus. He's that typical mysterious or aloof mentor that knows just what to say, but he's a lot of fun. Other than that, a tad bit forgettable overall. It's said to have gotten high ratings for the time, but ended only after 2 seasons. While literally any upgrade could have improved Rockstar, it could have used a more giving premise, such as
Ricky Sprocket, Ricky Sprocket, he is the biggest Showbiz Boy.
Ricky Sprocket, Showbiz Boy. Now this is a series I was surprised to hear of again. It follows the self-titled Showbiz Boy and his life as a child actor. More of the standard double life premise occurs with a less pretentious approach. The creators of these series are the duo behind Bob and Margaret, along with the accompanying shorts produced with the National Film Board of Canada. While their charms and quick wit highlighted in their other works, this one seems to be mostly lacking the same bite. It's not a lost cause in terms of appeal or comic styling, but it definitely aims for different goals. The animation, based on what I've seen, is made of below-average character rigs and okay background work. The intro stands out in sharp contrast as to how the show proper tackles compositional design. It was probably a missed opportunity to not use any interesting angles or shots in a cartoon about the misadventures of the entertainment industry. Like the last entry, it's not autobiographical, but it is executed as if it is telling snippets of someone's life. It does display a bit of wit here and there, but generally just writes to get from point A to point B. It was entertaining enough when I was younger, and I feel the same way now. Probably choose Yakkety Yak over it, you know? A little bit of bias there. It's just okay, like most of these cartoons, but that is a total 180 from none other than Martin Mystery. I think upon examination, this one comes in not only as my favorite off of this list, but as one of my favorite shows that's ever aired on this accursed channel. I'm amazed by how many changes they were able to get away with to the source material and the typical 6 to 11 cartoon premise. Martin Mystery is based off of an Italian comic serial from the 80s. Martin himself was a jack of all trades, but generally an adventurous detective who occasionally assists in police investigations, but generally wanders the earth with his caveman protector. Based on that premise, the peeps at Marathon vastly reimagined this into a horror mystery adventure series for older kids in the traditional anime-esque style. Quite naturally, Martin Mystery has a lot of stylistic influence. Its banter is pretty satisfying. The writing has to keep on its toes to properly flesh out the stories and the characters. The way each story is set up is well done, as the series marries the anime-esque action and gritty comic book styles in a new and interesting way. It's like a reverse Scooby-Doo in philosophy and tone. Maybe even a Scooby-Doo Zombie Island in places. How you mesh with the characters is going to be a deciding factor in how you enjoy this show. Martin is very cocky, impulsive, bantering goof that's voiced by Double D. If you find him grating in the first episode or so, you have no choice but to abort this mission. There's character arcs and development to be had, but this dude, being the backbone of the show, will haunt you like Boondocks Season 4. He will never leave, and you will be duly miserable if you try to stick it out. His banter with his sister, Diana, who used to be his wife in the comics, every episode, are pretty hilarious. But you have to have a tolerance for explosive bantering to appreciate it. The monsters and mythological phenomena they tackle are so fascinating, and the artwork done for them is phenomenal. Artistically speaking, the anime-type visual gags take precedent, but they manage to pull off with this more uncanny European-influenced style for the creatures, and it tends to work really well. The ambient visuals are gorgeous too. The score always helps plunge you right into the thick of the problem. It's up there with Goosebumps and Are You Afraid of the Dark as some of the best horror series children's entertainment can offer. It's better than I remember it, and it can only age like fine wine at this point. So, yeah, not so much has changed. Generally, nothing here fell below my expectations, and even when they weren't necessarily bringing the thunder, they still weren't too bad to watch. Some were average, and others are still great today. I know not all the content that came to Nicktoons were winners or heavy hitters. Hell, even the original content could be kinda lame at points. But it's nice to settle down and revisit some obscure classics that ruled the roost, even when located in the graveyard slots.